Okay, so let's call this Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
the United States of America,
and
to the republic
for
which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Yeah, I'd like to have a moment of silence for all those that gave the ultimate sacrifice to defend our Constitution for this great country. Okay, thank you very much. I don't believe there's any presentations. So we can go right to land use matters. Scott, please.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, there are announcements if any.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, announcements. Kathy, anyone? We'll go right down the line. Kathy with us?
Yeah, she's just on mute.
You hear me?
Oh, here we go. Go ahead.
Okay. I just would like to thank Chief Donnelly and our entire police department for conducting a peaceful march with the protesters on Tuesday evening. It went without event, and I think it was due to their calm demeanor and organization. And I want to thank all of them, and also our emergency staff. That's it for me tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Judy.
You're on mute, Judy.
Can you hear me now? I just want to remind people to send in their census form, and I want to say how proud I am of the Warminster residents and the police and how everything was handled Tuesday at the protests. It was very inspirational.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McKee, Mark?
Chairman, my sentiments as well for the protest. I also have a shout out for a local business, Lavogli, which is the place that's at 216 West Street Road, across from Chick-fil-A in the same strip mall as the famous Taco Suave. They had started to open that business several months ago and invested a lot into the building and redoing the place. And unfortunately, due to the COVID crisis, weren't able to get their restaurant open. But they finally opened for carryout, and they'll be open as of tomorrow for some limited outdoor seating. But I tried a little sample of their brick oven. They installed a brick oven, tried a little delivery from there last week, and it was terrific. And I just want to give them a shout out and wish them luck. They're 3 months behind where they should have been. So I wish them a lot of success in Warminster. And also that we keep up supporting our local businesses, because we've lost a few. We know we've lost a few and really don't want to lose any more until we get things open back up. And so I'd just like to ask everyone to please continue to support our local businesses. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Mary.
Again, I want to repeat everything everybody else said about thank you to Chief Donnelly for his excellent work that he did and his communication that he does with the residents within the township. And thank you for everybody that did decide to meet for the protest and kept everything in a very orderly fashion. I thank everybody.
Okay, thanks, Mary. And yes, shout out to Chief Donnelly and the entire police force and all the everyone who assisted in keeping an orderly and peaceful meeting of people and a protest. And yes, Mark, I agree. Come out and support businesses. Things are starting to open up. We're getting a little bit of breathing room. We've been all cooped up for quite some time. Tensions are high, and go out and support your local businesses and wish them all the success. It's been a tough couple months. Okay. Let's see. I guess we go to. There are no presentations. I'll reiterate that. And we'll go to land use matters. I guess, Mr. Holbrook.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you tonight, we have a land development project number 7 of 2017. It's Final land development at 1020 West Bristol Road. The developer is Mara2 LLC. The development team is here on the call with us this evening. They're going to have a little presentation for you. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to their attorney, Mr. Schaefer, and he can get things started, get a little background on the project for the new members of the board.
Same old Kurt. Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, you ready to, I'm sorry, ready to begin? Good.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Kurt Schaefer, the applicant's attorney. Somewhere with us here virtually are Noah Ianieri, the representative from Mara2 LLC, and June Park, our engineer. As Mr. Holbert said, this is the property at 1020 West Bristol Road. There are two lots. The proposal before you is to merge these two lots, which are currently vacant ground, into one lot, creating a medical office, medical dental building that would be 11,000 square feet in size. It would be a two-story building, so we're talking about a 5,500 square foot building footprint. We have 44 parking stalls as required by the zoning ordinance. Access to the site is twofold. There is a curb cut on York Road heading northbound, which would be a right turn in and a right turn out. And then there is a curb cut heading eastbound on Bristol Road, which would be a right and left turn in, right turn out only, no left turn out. The one thing I do want to point out is you'll note in the upper left-hand corner of the plan is an indication about a proposed sign. The applicant's very much active in the township and is of his own expense and volition putting up a sign, a welcome to Warminster sort of LED sign that would have a nice saying on it and announce events that are taking place in the township. Thank you. All the needed variances have been granted. We received preliminary approval last week from the Planning Commission. We are seeking final approval here tonight. There are really no issues as far as we're concerned before the board. I have the Carroll Engineering letter of January 22nd. They raise no issues. The zoning officer's letter of March 17th raises no issues. The Remington and Vernick letter of April 6th raises no issues. We have the Gilmore review letter of April 7th. Everything there is a will comply. Really the only issue that came up before the Planning Commission that we've been talking about is on the lower right corner of the plan on the side of the building is the proposed location for the dumpster pad. There had been some talk asking us to move it elsewhere. At the Planning Commission, Mr. Ianieri represented to the commission that he had spoken with the neighbor. The neighbor is satisfied that the buffering will be sufficient to mitigate any impact from the location of the dumpster. And I would point out that no one's ever showed up at the meeting in terms of public participation to comment on the plan. So I will accept Mr. Ianieri's representation that the neighbor is fine with that location. That's a general overview. If there are any specifics, I'm sure we're prepared to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. There was a resolution prepared for this evening. Have you had the chance to review that resolution?
Yes, Ms. Zimmerman sent that out this afternoon. We reviewed it. Everything is satisfactory as far as the applicant is concerned.
And if this project receives approval for the board, is you or your client prepared to sign it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd offer this up to you for the board's review and decision at this time.
Okay. Just one question, because I do remember this when I was on the Planning Commission, and the ingress and egress from Bristol Road was all taken care of. I know that was.
Yes, that's as per our traffic study, in fact, recommended no left turn exit. And
Okay.
That's our study, and we're going to live by it. So it's going to be left turn in, right turn out only.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, if I
Anyone
can,
else have any other
if I could
questions?
jump in, Sorry. So PennDOT, we did receive the review letter from PennDOT. Initially, what they want is a sign prohibiting left turns from 4 p.m. To 6 p.m. or during the PM peak hour. If that does not seem to work, then they will require a permanent deterrence to make a left turn. So right now we are allowing left turn, or the plan is to allow left turns, except for the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Scott, so is the motion is to approve final land development, is that?
Yeah, the motion is to approve the final land development. We would need a motion and a second for that, yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I just got a message from Ms. Frescatore. She does have a question, but can't unmute her microphone. So if someone on there can unmute Ms. Frescatore, she could ask her question.
Can someone unmute her? Is that what you're asking, Greg?
Yeah. I think whoever set this up can't. I'm saying Mark can't unmute either. I'm gonna get text as well. All right, so let's, Larry, is it possible, or whoever's a master of this, to unmute people? Perhaps maybe taking down the drawing might help.
All right, now the button's there.
Okay, I think it's the drawing. Okay.
All we saw was the screen with the plans, so you couldn't unmute it. The only question I have, I noticed that there was a comment that there was no stormwater they offer no comments in respect to stormwater management. Craig, can you explain?
This project was started several years ago, so as the applicant's attorney said, we worked out all issues. The only outstanding issues were related to PennDOT and traffic. So stormwater was worked out, zoning, all the landscaping. This is probably one of the cleanest plans you're going to see, but it's been a few years, unfortunately, given some problems with PennDOT and the intersection. We had a chance to work all issues out a while ago. They did receive preliminary approval back in December. They should have received final, but again, they had some PennDOT issues they had to work out. So we have no comments whatsoever.
Thank you, Craig. I just wanted you to just update the newer members of the board and just give them a little bit of the background. So thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment too, if I may.
Certainly.
I just wanted to recognize Mr. Ianieri. I know I did when he was in for preliminary. Nello has been a long time volunteer in this township through the Rotary Club. In fact, he's every other year he's Rotarian of the Year. He spends countless hours volunteering for this township. Even to the other Welcome to Warminster signs around town with the Rotary wheel you see on them, he maintains them by himself at his own expense. So I'm really glad that he's finally getting this done, and he's a terrific guy, and he's going to be a great owner here and operator here in Warminster. Again, thank you, Nello.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, and we all appreciate everything you do. That's fantastic. And this, I remember when this went through, and Craig, you're right. This is very clean. So I guess is there any other comments, questions?
Did you receive any?
No.
Say that again, please.
Did you receive any public comment on the application?
That's exactly what I was about to say. I have received no public comments.
There was no public comment at the planning commission either.
Okay.
Okay. So do we have a motion to give final approval?
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chair.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we vote? Okay, so seeing none, let's call the vote. I'll say Mr. McKee first.
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. 5-0. Congratulations and best of luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Quite welcome. Okay, so now we go to public comment. Mr. Schuster, I will open the floor to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You and I had discussed previously that we have received a number of comments related to Mr. McKee and comments that he had made. Unfortunately, many of those comments came in not through the prescribed email address that was put out there for public comment. So what we've decided to do is I will read off the comments that either A, came in to the public comment email address, or B, specifically said that they wanted their email to be read aloud at the meeting. For those that did send it in and it's not read aloud, be rest assured that your comment still has been forwarded to the board. So everything has been sent to the board, so they do have your comments. The first comment that I have is from Pat Boyle, 6310 Centennial Station. I haven't commented on Mr. McKee's statements prior to now because it is so hard to describe the anguish, hurt, and disgust I felt when I read your statements. I know we don't see eye to eye on many subjects, but I always thought the people of the community count on you when the going got tough. Violence begets violence. Township supervisor telling the highly respected Warminster Police Department shoot anyone is absolutely disgusting. I don't think an apology for your words is enough. You know in your heart what you must do. The next comment received was from Nina Chera, 438 Chestnut Road. Her comments are, Dear Warminster Board of Supervisors, Warminster Township Manager, Mr. Greg Schuster, it pains me to have to address the board with such hurtful issue. I'm sure at this point, Mr. McKee, have heard the opinions and feelings of many after posting on Facebook in response to the board, which is now all over the local news. I certainly have, as people who knows I am from Warminster are quick to comment in a non-very positive way towards the hurtful comments made by Mr. McKee, questioning if there was even a small sense of respect to his position and others before his fingers touched the keyboard. Yes, we all make mistakes, but we also know that mistakes come with consequences, and whether we are ready or not, we must face those. 2, apologies are a lame excuse for bad behavior. That's my opinion, Mr. McKee. Save the apologies for someone who gives them importance and give me your best behavior instead, especially in this case, when you are a representative of my township, whose standards I held higher than everyone else's. There is always someone or something being affected by our actions and words. Right now, that is the whole world around you. At times like this, each one of us have the choice of helping each other through the tough times, being compassionate and respectful to other people's painful situations, or creating more chaos and destruction. What did you think your words were supporting? And there are, quote, and there are times when you must take a stand that is neither safe nor politic, nor popular, but you must do it because it is right. Martin Luther King. And because I choose to do what's right in times of chaos, I'm here to ask Mr. McKee to also do what's right for our beloved township and face the consequences of his action with dignity by submitting his resignation. I thank Mr. McKee for his service, for all the good things he has done for the township so far, although now clouded by his own very painful action. Thank you for your attention. The next was received by Rosaria Giorla, Mr. William McHugh, Mrs. Anastasia McHugh. Mr. Schuster, my name is Rosaria Giorla. I reside at 964 Worthington Drive, Warminster, PA. I would like my comments read during the public comment session of the township meeting on June 4th. In a time where the entire country is looking for leadership and peace, this is not what we need in our beautiful townships. The comments made by Supervisor Mark McKee recently on Facebook advocating shooting peaceful protesters were outrageously dangerous. We all know this especially for the last week of unrest amongst our beautiful Americans of all colors. After reading the article in the Intelligencer about Supervisor McKee's comments inciting violence against protesters, I think you should ask him for his resignation. A township official calling for citizens to be shot is not appropriate if anyone does not act on how dangerous and terribly reckless is coming from a place of leadership. We are just like everyone else who believes violence is an acceptable answer. God bless the people and the police department. The next comment is from Nicole Renier. Dear Mr. Schuster, I'm writing you in response to the comments made by Mark McKee of the Warminster Board of Supervisors. I am appalled by his remarks as they were not only offensive and unacceptable, but harmful and divisive. To propagate violence is extremely dangerous, and his racist rhetoric intensifies this danger for Black members of our community. The fact that he holds a position on the Warminster Board of Supervisors amplifies this damage and is an outright disgrace. As a longtime resident of Warminster dedicated to all the people in my community, I strongly call for his resignation. His actions demonstrate he is unfit to serve the Warminster Township and members of our community, and he should step down immediately. Please add my name to be read tonight at the Township meeting in support of his resignation. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. It is so very important. Appreciate it. The next comment is from Marcia Sklar. She writes, as a resident for over 13 years of Warminster, I reside at the Village of Five Ponds. I am quite upset and terribly disturbed at a statement made by a board member, Mark McKee. He stated that in his opinion, looters and protesters should be shot. Obviously, I am against looting and destruction of property, but I do not advocate shooting anyone. It's stated in the article that I read that he did apologize and was remorseful. I don't buy that. These are turbulent times, and the last thing we need is more violence. To think that a member of the Board of Supervisors of my township is advocating for more violence is outrageous. My husband and I is a special place with kind and caring people, and my husband and I and many of our neighbors feel that this should be addressed and that he should not be on the board at all. Warminster is a special place with kind and caring people, and something like this puts a stain on our community. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Sincerely, Marcia Spark, 44 Villa Drive, Warminster. The next one is from Paul Krager, 1221 Linda Lane. Mark has been, for all of his time as a supervisor, had one thing in mind. He does what he feels is correct for the people of this township. I believe he has been on the board for 8 years and has constantly fought for all of the people of this town. He, in my opinion, is the best supervisor currently on the board and in the past. I just wish we had 4 more people like him now instead of what is the best thing for politics for the board. Since this new board has been running this township, there has been a steep decline in doing the right thing. Stop giving to the unions when it costs the taxpayers more money and getting less for what is being spent. The next one is from Stephen Sweeter, 1010 Howard Road. To whom it may concern, we write in support of Supervisor Mark McKee. He has been a constant voice for the citizens of Warminster Township since he was sworn in. Supervisor McKee represents businesses, unions, and the taxpayer at the same time. He has provided fair and important decisions based on facts rather than outside influences. This community needs Supervisor McKee to continue to provide the same safety and spirit that Warminster Township has represented and will continue to do so with him on the Warminster Township Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time and your consideration. God bless you and yours, the Speeder family, and Jean K. Blunt. I have a comment here, moving on from the comments that were related to Mr. McKee. This one is from Bob Welsh, 565 Hallowell Avenue. I wanted to ask a question about the bidding process for the park project. I am a small business owner and general contractor in Warminster for over 2 decades. I pay taxes to the township, but I find that I am barred from bidding for any of this work. I have experience, the ability, and the desire to bid, but our current requirements eliminate local contractors from applying. I just don't understand how these requirements are fair to the taxpayers or the business owners. We fail to generate competition and discourage local workers. I would respectfully request the chair address this concern in response. Thank you. The next comment is from Lee Hefner, 546 Nemerald Ave. I'm asking for a review to have speed bumps placed on Nemerald Avenue between Evergreen and Norwood. I'm sure you're well aware that it is used as a cut through from Street Road to York Road and vice versa. Many children live on the street. Cars fly down the road, way exceeding the speed limit. I feel like my road is a highway and not a residential road. Sometimes in the morning, I can't even back out of my driveway to go to work due to all the traffic. A review of this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. And I believe I just received another email through the public email, public comment account. This is from Mike Ferris, 948 Cornell Drive. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to comment on the recent article in the Intelligencer early this week regarding your fellow supervisor, Mark McKee, and the comments he made in an email that was forwarded to a reporter by one of his fellow board members. I will neither condone nor make apologies for those comments, nor do I believe Mark would want me to do either of those things. But I would like to share my thoughts on this matter. Since I moved to Warminster in 2016, I've had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know many wonderful people, including yourself. Most of the people I have met love this town that we call home. Do some people complain about some things in town? You betcha. But overall, we live in a quiet and peaceful town, which is protected by a very capable police department. Over the past several months, we have all been on lockdown due to the pandemic. This has caused many people to lose or be furloughed from their jobs. Businesses may have been or may be lost over this awful virus. In addition, we all saw the video of George Floyd being killed by a police officer in Minneapolis. This set into motion many protests, most of which have been peaceful, to raise awareness of the racial inequalities in our justice system. But it wasn't long before some of these so-called protests turned into opportunities for some to destroy property, steal goods, and commit violence. I know some say it's just property, but I'm sure the dozen or two families who lost loved ones due to these violent riots would disagree. Over the past week or so, we have been inundated with images of protests on TV. We've also seen images of destruction and violence in police departments being told to stand down. That, coupled with the 3-month lockdown due to the pandemic, sometimes causes people to say, or in this case, write things they don't really mean. I have known Mark for a couple of years now. If you were to ask me to describe Mark in one word, I would immediately say passionate. Mark is passionate about everything, including being a longtime trade union member, a member of our community, township supervisor, and last, certainly not least, a husband and father. Mark is passionate about raising awareness for many causes in the township, whether by raising money, collecting food for the local food bank, or just helping a neighbor with a problem. Mark made a comment that some would say is not becoming of a supervisor. Knowing Mark as I do, I firmly believe this comment was made in the heat of the moment while I was watching his former town being burned and looted. I know Mark regrets making that comment and has even apologized for it. My point here is that Mark is a wonderful family man, one hell of a township supervisor, and in my case, a very good friend. I believe Mark when he says he is sorry for the comment. I believe you, the rest of the Board of Supervisors, as well as the town, should accept his apology and move on to more important matters of the township. Thank you, Mike Ferris. I do have another email that just came in. This is from Tara McSain, 847 Christie Court. She writes, for the past several months, we have been all managing through unprecedented public health and social challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. No matter where we live, we must remain vigilant to decrease devastating health and economic consequences. While we continue to contend with the staggering losses caused by this terrible pandemic and are now grappling with the groundswell of unrest and activism across the U.S., has been a very emotional time for us, as it's been for so many people. We cannot unsee what we have seen. We can't forget what happened to Mr. Floyd, and we shouldn't. Those feelings of grief, anger, and frustration have taken to the streets of not only the major cities of America, but also our own backyards, with both peaceful demonstrations and at times acts of violence and destruction. We need to come together as a community and set aside agendas to heal our people and grow as a society. We need to be relentless in embracing diversity, truly hearing others' perspectives and fighting against unconscious bias in how we show up each and every day. Through 2020, though 2020 has had more difficult days and challenges than we all would have liked, we need to remain optimistic about our future as individuals, families, and a community. We cannot change this world alone, but we can make a difference together. Let's become a beacon for hope and healing, an example for our country. I am asking the following of the board. This is an especially critical moment in our history. And can you please see fit to remove the barriers of party lines and agendas and begin to truly collaborate as a whole, not as a segregated members? And what plans have you put in place to ensure Warminster's safety, healing, unity, and prosperity for our future, so we may be that shining example for all to follow? Kind regards, Tara McSain. And that is the final comment I have received.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to address the comments regarding myself.
Certainly, Mark.
Thank you. First of all, I put it in writing, but I'd like to say in person how much I deeply, deeply regret my comments. And if I could take them back, I certainly would. I would like to take a moment to explain, and it's not an excuse whatsoever, why I'm so passionate when it comes to protection of personal property. I don't tell this story to too many people, and I told it to someone last night that's known me for many, many years and didn't know this. In fact, when this happened to my family, my son wasn't young enough to remember, and he's going to hear about it right now because I need to tell the story. Several years ago, during a recession, I was working in North Jersey and wasn't able to be home, and my family was home alone. And my house was burglarized through the night while my wife and my 3-year-old son holed up in a bedroom. They were such lowlifes that they actually took his piggy bank, and I was absolutely helpless to help them. And when I see things like this and destruction of property and people being violated, I've had it happen to me. My family's been terrorized. It doesn't make any excuse for my words and actions of the past week. No excuse whatsoever. But I just wanted to tell the story and I need to control my emotions better as a person and as an elected official, which I will certainly do. But I just wanted to tell of the experience that my family, that touched my home, not through this whatsoever, but in the past. And I appreciate the time, and I want to thank the people that wrote out on my behalf and the people that wrote out the other asking me to resign. I certainly understand your anger. I do. And I would be all too glad to meet with every one of you individually anytime. So that's all I have. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I have some comments I'd like to read.
Certainly.
I have known Mr. McKee for many years. We have been neighbors. We have served on the board together. We've served on different committees together, and we've worked very well as fellow supervisors. I have to say that the comments were very, very disturbing, and it's one thing for somebody to enter your home and to scare folks when they're sleeping or attack or whatever, but we cannot go around shooting people for looting. And most of the protests you see are fairly organized and peaceful. And then you always have the criminal element that come in, and it's a shame that it's like that. But I feel we live in extraordinary times. We are dealing with months of quarantine due to the coronavirus. Our township is in a major financial crisis and racial unrest due to the tragic death of George Floyd. Extraordinary times demand we as a board exercise our leadership with stability, reassurance, and most importantly, common sense. We will weather these difficult times by standing together as a community. Warminster is a working class community, and we value our homes, our properties, and our businesses because we struggled and we worked very hard to provide a better life for our families. I am disappointed and I condemn Mr. McKee's reckless comments when he said, "I vote to shoot all looters," hashtag Warminster Police Department. We cannot tolerate acts of violence or leaders who incite violence. One of our main priorities on our board is the safety of our residents, which is at risk if we have protests due to the irresponsible comments sent to our township email and Facebook. If any of our officers made those same statements, they would be fired. In light of Mr. McKee's reckless comments to shoot unarmed protesters, I have serious concerns regarding his leadership abilities. Therefore, Mr. McKee, it's in your hands. Man up, do the right thing. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Mary.
Certainly.
A lot of it echoes what Kathy already said is we are a hard working class township with residents that work very hard for what they have. As an elected official that represents these people that are in the township of Warminster, these statements should never have been made, especially utilizing the hashtag of WPD. This is a total embarrassment to us as supervisors and leaders of the community. I know you, Mark, that you have made an apology to everybody, but again, words cannot be taken back. So it's very disheartening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Judy, do you have, I heard you.
Yeah. Well, I was just appalled by the remarks. And as I said, and I wrote back to Mark at the time that I saw it, that, you know, there's no excuse. Property isn't worth murder and killing somebody. And I've had property stolen from me, and I have been robbed, and I have been taken advantage of. And no matter how much it shook me, I always remembered these are just things. It's just stuff. Stuff is replaceable. Lives are not replaceable. And I think that part of that comment, part of what happened at the protest the other night, I know there was one guy there with a truckload of guns, because I talked to Chief Donnelly about it. And I don't think people would be as willing to say, we're coming and we're going to be armed if Mr. McKee hadn't said that. It was so disrespectful to our residents and so disrespectful to life that I just think it's just wrong. And he should, like, as Kathy says, and Mary, man up and do the right thing.
Thank you, Judy. Again, I'll comment as well. That's not reflective of this board, and I want to hold this up. Everyone on this board, this is our oath, and what we all solemnly swear to do is uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the police in their oath do the same thing. Now, when we say we're going to defend the Constitution of the United States, which is right here, everyone should probably get a copy of this and have a look, because you're not defending the parts that you like and disregard the rest. It's the Constitution of the United States. And there's case law that's been settled years ago in the Supreme Court that it's illegal. You can't kill people. If a police officer, someone escapes from their car, they can't gun them down as well as people that are stealing property. Now, I understand there's an element of we have the right to assemble. That's an article, that's an amendment in the Constitution. And people that assemble peacefully, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And also, if there's an element of criminality, then you should be prosecuted for that as well. But we need to uphold the Constitution. People have the right, and if a police officer would have done that, they would not have, or said that, they would not be a police officer. And I'm very, very appreciative of the fantastic job that the officers and Chief Donnelly do in this township, because they do uphold their oath. So we all need to understand that this Constitution of the United States is just that. Every article, every amendment, not just the ones you like. So you need to think before you speak. and walk a mile in everyone else's shoes. And I've had things stolen from me, and you know, not in the same context as you, Mark. I understand that, and I understand why you would be upset. But I've also been robbed at a very young age, you know, at Broad and Almy. So, you know, but I didn't gun anybody down. So, you know, we need to be very careful in what we say. We are, you know, we are the supervisors of this township, and to send a message to the police department is absolutely abhorrent. And I don't agree with it. I was shocked by it, and you know, and we'll leave it at that. So everyone's said what they had to say. So I guess we'll go on to the next. You know, one last comment. You know, and I'm going to address this to you, Mr. McKay. You know, it's kind of, when you make comments like that, the police, especially in Warminster and everywhere, are very well trained to show restraint. Now, are there bad actors everywhere? There's bad actors in every profession. So, but to put something common out like that basically shows a lack of respect and confidence in our police department, assuming that the only way they can deal with theft and looting is to shoot them. So, you know, that would be another egregious crime, along with the looting and the arson. So we again, we need to be very, very careful in how we choose our words. Okay. So with that, I guess we move to the consent agenda. Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's consent agenda is as follows. Item A is approval of the minutes from your May 7th meeting. Item B is approval of the minutes from your May 26th meeting. Item C is approval of proclamation recognizing Chamber of Commerce scholarship recipient Lauren Gallen. Item D is Rosemore Donuts, release number 2 from the escrow account in the amount of $115,047 as recommended by the engineer. And item E is consider appointment of an interim finance director. Earlier this week, I informed you that our current finance director, John Marcarelli, has tendered his resignation. We, of course, wish him well in his new endeavor. The proposal that's before you is to engage Mr. Steve Wiesner as the interim finance director until we develop a permanent solution. Mr. Wiesner comes from has a long and extensive financial background, and of course is very familiar with Warminster as having served 2 years here as the interim manager. That is the consent agenda for this evening.
Okay, so we can motion to approve the consent agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Judy moved it. I think Mark seconded.
I'll second.
Mark,
and
you second, Mark?
Yeah, with the comment too, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, yeah, certainly. Well, you know, we have a second. We'll open it up to comments.
I just want to welcome with open arms Steve Wiesner back into the fold in Warminster here. I had the pleasure of working with Steve. Kathy, you did too, when he was the interim manager here. A hard-working man and a really, really nice man too. And I think he'll be a terrific fit to fill the gap in our finance department. And I look forward to seeing him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things, and I know when he was here, we were financially stable. So yeah, I think that is a good addition right now, especially right now.
I agree with Mr. McKee and Mr. Hayes. I had the pleasure of working with Steve Wiesner, and I can tell you that one of his strongest assets is that he is very, very good with finances. So I think he'll be a great addition, and I welcome him back. Thank you.
Okay, any other comment? Greg, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment, no.
I have a question. How are we going to address the public comment from Bob Welsh and the other person that wants speed bumps?
Can we do that at the end? At the public comment at the end?
Yeah, you
Because
can do that.
we've moved on to the consent agenda now.
Okay.
All right, so, any other questions? So, we'll call the question. Mr. McKee? Looked like you said aye.
Oh, yes, aye, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Frescator?
Aye.
Ms. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Hoover?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Consent agenda passes 5-0. Thank you. Finance report, Mr. Schuster.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is the transfers and bill list before you. There's a supplemental bill list dated May 27, 2020, the amount of $525,362.91, as well as a bill list dated May 21, 2020, in the amount of $1,516,461.21. As the board is inclined, I would recommend a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the transfers bill list?
I'll approve. Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the public, Greg?
None.
Okay, so call the question, Mr. McKee? Sounded like an aye again.
That's an aye, Mr. Chairman. My button's sticking here.
All right. Ms. Frescator? Aye?
Mhm.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hoover?
Aye.
And Ms. Owens?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. 5-0, thank you. Okay, unfinished business. Consider the authorization to re-advertise. Mr. Schuster?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all recall, we did go out to bid on the park projects, which are funded by the RACP and DCNR grants. Those projects, those bids came back above the budget. There's a couple reasons we believe for that. Number one is we went out to bid right when the whole pandemic was hitting. There apparently was also some bidders who had some technology issues. So we decided to go out to bid again. This time, though, the bid has been restructured. It has not been redesigned. It's simply been restructured to have a smaller base bid and push out all the other stuff into alternates, so that if the base bid allows for it, we can go ahead and start selecting the alternates that we'd like to once we review the bids. If you have any more specific questions, I'd be happy to answer, but this would be to authorize going out to rebid.
Okay, is there a motion to authorize the re-advertisement of the Warminster Community Park project?
Motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments? None?
There is no public comment for this one.
Okay, so as I said before, this bid came in way over the budgeted project projected costs. There were several reasons for that. I'm not going to get into all of them, but as I said before, we are going to make sure that this project comes in on time and on budget. It's as simple as that. We're not going to spend $1.5 million extra dollars for extravagance that may not be necessary. So we'll see where things shake out here, and I guess we'll if there's no other questions or comments, we'll call the question. Mr. McKee?
Aye.
Ms. Frescator?
Aye.
Ms. Hoover?
Aye.
Ms. Owens,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, new business. Consider authorization for advertisement for Lewis Drive and Street Road Improvement Green Light Go bid. This is interesting because when we went to PSATs back in February, they didn't know that we were applying for this. So, Mr. Schuster, I guess I'll give it to you or Mr.
Well,
Kennedy.
this is an award that was already given. This is a 2018 grant award. So as part of that award process, we do have to go out to bid, particularly for the big thing is the new mast arm and some other improvements to that intersection. There is a 20% local match required. However, we are meeting that local match through labor.
Okay. Motion to consider authorization for the advertisement.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any questions or comments? Any from the public, Mr. Schuster?
Not for this item now.
Okay, so let's call the question. Mr. McKee,
Aye.
Ms. Frescator,
Aye.
Ms. Hoover,
Aye.
Ms. Owens,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. 5-0, thank you. All right, moving along. Professional reports, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll echo what you've all said previously and then thank everyone for the peaceful protest that occurred a couple days ago. Everything went off just fine. Everyone's rights were upheld. Everyone was safe. So a big thank you to the Warminster Police Department, all of our residents, and everyone that came out and kept it a peaceful evening. Second thing, just want to thank Public Works for the work they did yesterday. We had a very nasty storm come through the area. We are still cleaning up for that PICO, still giving an extended restoration period. Fortunately, in Warminster, we have recovered quite a bit, so we're not as hard hit as some other areas of Bucks and Monco, but it's still going to be a few days before everything is fully restored. And finally, I'll make a note that yard waste has been significantly delayed. Mascaro has been having some labor issues with all of the protests down in Philadelphia. They have been concentrating on trash and recycling, but they will resume yard waste pickup starting again Monday. I'll be putting out more details on social media if we're able to get more resources out here. But I know it's been a long wait for a lot of people that have had delays in yard waste. And of course, having the storm come through generated more yard waste. So we're working with Mascaro to try and get that going again. So that's it, unless anyone has any questions for me.
You and I have been communicating about 47,000 times a day, so I really don't have any questions. Which is great. I mean, there's a great line of communication, and I appreciate your you're communicating everything that's going on around us.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Solicitors report, Mr. Holcomb.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have our report from April. I can take any questions about it if you have any. Obviously, certain matters would have to be discussed in executive session if it's a matter that's privileged, but I do want to add an addition. As was mentioned earlier during the announcements, Warminster Township and all of Bucks County will be moving to the yellow phase under the governor's orders tomorrow. So that will allow for certain activities to be more open, certain commerce can be done more. Tomorrow, our office will be attending the annual PBI Municipal Law Update. This is a seminar that PBI is the Pennsylvania Bar Institute puts on every year for lawyers, and one of the topics is any legal challenges in dealing with the stay-at-home orders. So we are staying on top of that should anything arise in Warminster Township.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Scott? No. All right, Mr. Kenner, we'll leave it up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have our June engineers report. I really don't have much more to add other than we continue to work on the road program. Chris Green, our landscape architect and park designer, has been working with your staff on the rebid packaging for your park project you already mentioned. The only project that is of significance that you'll see is the Aldi and Bank project coming up. I still believe they need zoning relief before you'll see them. We'll most likely be getting a resubmission here. So I think it'll be at least another month or two till you see that, but hopefully that project will be pretty clean and just a few issues to discuss. Most likely they'll be asking for preliminary final, but it depends on issues worked out with PennDOT and also at the zoning hearing board. One project in construction nearing completion is the Rosemore Donuts, although it took, I think, 5 years to get started. They're nearing completion. We have a few minor things to work out in the field with the dumpster pad, some logistics, and we're working that out at staff level. But I anticipate them opening up very soon. And that's all I have. I'll take any questions.
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Greg, how about how are we making out over at Caddis? I appreciate you getting involved there. There were some issues with the neighbors with some of the sediment basins that you got involved and took care of. Haven't heard any other complaints since. So,
you know, I try to keep my report short, but I know there's always question. That was one where it's been going very well since we had, after the developer addressed some issues with the stormwater, and they were concerned with some children or anybody wandering onto the property. So county builders within, I think, a day addressed those concerns, put up safety fence. Outside that, we have had no issues. It's been going really smooth, knock on wood. So that's why I didn't mention it. All the other projects have been running pretty smooth. I think everybody's busy and anxious to finish their projects.
Well, I meant to thank you for taking care of that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Upcoming agenda items.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I have that's up on the next agenda right now is the hopefully awarding bids for the Warminster Community Park, which you just authorized to advertise. Other than that, if there's no objections, we will cancel the June 18th meeting.
Okay, being as it's summer, I'm not sure anyone has any objections.
No objection.
No objection.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
I know it's coming because I'm going to announce it.
No, but I know we had briefly talked prior to the meeting about possibly moving the July meeting because it's July 4th week. There's a few people who are going to be on vacation this week. Can we consider that?
Certainly can.
I know that's a big vacation week.
It is a big vacation week. We can move it back the following week if no one has any objections.
And whatever your pleasure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any objections with that. That is a big week, and everyone's looking forward to getting out after being, whatever you self-quarantined or however you want. So everyone's waiting to get out and about. So I have no objections to that. Okay, and the other thing, by the way, before we get into public comment, I'd like to say that I did not announce, Mark, and I thought you were going to bring this up, that it is summertime.
Yeah.
So everyone's rather casual, and that's quite acceptable until the fall.
I don't want you to think I was a bum.
No, and myself included. I put a collared shirt on and, no sport coat, no suit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr.
Everyone,
Chair.
it's hot out right now.
Mr. Chair, may I ask what date then the next supervisor meeting will be?
Well, it was scheduled for the 2nd, right?
Right.
I think
to the 18th.
Well, I think it might be better if you allow us to reach out to all of you and get your schedule, because we also have the schedules of other boards to consider.
Okay.
So why don't we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll figure out an appropriate date.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we can get into the second round of public comment. I believe there was a couple, the speed bump issue that we did not comment on. We were engaged in something else. So Did the police department look into this? Wasn't this a complaint that we saw earlier, Mr. Schuster?
Oh, we get complaints like this all the time. I'm not sure if it was a specific one. I think the last one I remember was Delmont perhaps. But we get these complaints for a lot of different roads. The typical way we address it is we ask the police to go down there. They deploy the speed trailer and see if there actually is a problem. If there is, they'll put more assets and more attention to that area. In terms of the speed bump, those are usually the last resort. There are a lot of complications that come with a speed bump, so they are not a preferred deterrent. However, we will go ahead and look at that road and see if there's anything we can do to address the speed.
And Mr. Chairman, I know several years ago, we had serious discussions about speed bumps throughout the township. And at the time, that was Public Works, and that was one of the biggest problems was that with snow removal, which is incredibly difficult with speed bumps and it would damage our equipment. And that's kind of why we never went in that direction. And we felt that if we did it on one street, where do we stop? So that's where we went to the direction of the chief, putting speed out and trap out and whatnot.
Yeah, I understand, and that makes perfect sense. That's the first thing that came into my mind was, what do we do in inclement weather? It would be an issue. And then is the entire township, how many thousand roads do we have? I mean, where do you stop? That's right.
100 miles.
100 miles of speed bumps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll look into that concern from our resident, and hopefully it's resolved without any further actions as far as labor and speed bumps and things of that and such. And I think there was one other comment from Mr. Welsh. Mr. Welsh, the purpose of the RCO is to ensure that we have qualified, not just people that claim they're qualified. This is a $5 million project. We need to be assured, especially through bonding, which is going to be exorbitant. Most people can't afford the bonding to even do a project like this. But what we want to be ensured of is that there's a labor pool that's been properly trained. And that labor pool ensures us that we won't have to go back and redo the project 3 times because of workmanship that's been done from people who claim to be through a program or claim to be qualified. So if you have a training program that's certified, you're certainly welcome to bid on the project. One thing we do not want is something similar to the school where I don't believe there were a lot of qualified trained labor pool in those companies. And when we got a little bit of a situation over there as far as the condition of the high school. So that's the purpose of the RCO. It's not to shut anyone out. And you're welcome to if you have a valid certified training program. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've got a few more public comments in. The first one is again from Tara McSain. She writes, "Good evening. Can you please address my concern that was posed during the first public comment session? What plans have you put in place to ensure Warminster's safety, healing, unity, and prosperity for our future so we may be that shining example for all to follow?" Do you want me to continue reading the other comments, or do you want to address them one at a time?
I guess we can address this one. As far as shining a beacon of light, that starts right here. Starts right here with the 5 members of this board, and then it trickles down through our directives and our behavior to everyone else. So again, this is it's important that the board behave appropriately, think before they speak, and uphold the Constitution. And again, as far as what was the beginning of that? Because I believe it has something to do with our Warminster Police Department to maintain What was the beginning of that, Greg?
It said, can you please address my question that was posed during the first public comment session? What plans have you put in place to ensure Warminster's safety, healing, unity, and prosperity for our future? So we may be that shining example for all the following.
Right. Well, as far as the safety goes, we have that in place right now, and the police and Chief Donnelly are doing a fantastic job of that. And that was highlighted, I believe on Tuesday. They did a fantastic job keeping everyone calm, moving the protest along. Everyone went home safely. There were no incidents that anyone would regret for the rest of their life, whether it be a loss of life or spending your life in jail for something foolish. So I believe our police department has already accomplished that, and they're doing a great job. And that's about all I have to say about that. Anyone else want to comment?
I agree. I was there at the protest, and I walked around and I talked to people, and I talked to the policemen that were there, and they did a wonderful job. And it was a very enriching experience for me to see all these young kids. I felt it was deja vu. It brought back old memories. So it was a good protest. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next comment, Mr. Schuster, please.
Yeah, the next comment is from Mike Ferris, 948 Cornell Drive. Mr. Chairman, with the current financial crisis in the township, will the Board of Supervisors consider reinstating the Township Budget Committee? Thanks, Mike Ferris.
The Township what?
Budget Committee.
We have something in place right now. We have lots of professionals, and we're not considering that right at the moment, Mike. Thank you. If we change, if we feel the need to do that, we certainly will. I served on that. I was the chair of that, and I served on that committee. It took us a long time to get up to speed, but right now what we have in place is a group of professionals that are just that. That's what they do for a living. We're making a lot of progress. We're looking at about 20 different avenues to go down. We're going to choose the right one for this township. And right now, we're not looking to involve any more people in that process. Too many cooks spoil the brew. Thank you.
Our next comment comes from Pat Boyle, and she's just asking, Greg, everyone is asking where the picture of the employee was with that downed tree. I can address this. I believe she's referring to a picture I posted on Facebook with a very large tree that was taken down. The structure was just incredible. So that picture was taken off of Tally Ho. And the last public comment I have is from Joy Capuzzi, 530 Penrose Lane. Good evening. I would like to have someone explain the events that took place on Tuesday, June 2nd, which unfolded into a peaceful protest. There was so much banter about the protest, and then having it called off, and eventually it did take place anyway. There is still talk about what I think was a staging area in front of the old Mealies. Many people think the National Guard was there. It would be nice for everyone's sake to hear what actually took place and stop the conjecture. For my part, I'm just happy that it all went well with no problems. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, I can also address this one. One of the areas I think of confusion from residents was about the protests and why it happened, where it did, and when it did, and many people asking, why did the township allow this or give them a permit? You don't need a permit to protest. That is a guaranteed right. So we were not involved in scheduling this or doing anything. So the original organizer did cancel it. Some other people picked up the mantle and decided to hold it anyways. We did everything we could to make sure it went off safely, which it did. So that's kind of what happened. This was not something that was organized by the township. So what you had is a lot of people talking about it and not a lot of people having really a lot of facts because it wasn't a township event. As far as what was in front of the old Heelys, now Ashley Furniture, that was a police unit that was in Warminster. It was not the National Guard, as we didn't know exactly what was occurring because there was no formal organizer behind the event. We wanted to make sure that everything would be peaceful, so they were staged there in case they were. Again, it was not the National Guard; those were other police units.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. I'd like to add that the original protest, I believe, was the T going into the Boston Harbor, which led to this great nation eventually. But people have the right to assemble, and they have the right to petition the government to hear their views, and that is in the Constitution. So again, it was a peaceful protest. I can't thank enough Chief Donnelly and the Warminster Police Department for keeping everyone calm and under control and making sure everything was successful. And thanks again. I appreciate that. Any others comments?
No further comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to supervisors' comments. I basically said everything I have to say, so I'd like to pass on. Mr. McKee, do you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to wish everyone a very safe, happy, and healthy summertime. Let's not forget we're still in the COVID crisis, and we need to look out for things are opening up slowly, but we need to look after ourselves and people that we're around with our mask. And I never thought I'd see a day where I left my home with a mask in hand and hand sanitizer in the other, but I think that's going to be the new normal for a bit. So let's not forget that we have to keep practicing this till this pandemic is finally dealt with. But I really want to wish everyone a happy summer and happy 4th of July if I don't see everyone until after the 4th. Please be safe and don't drink and drive.
Thanks, Mr. McKee. Ms. Hoover?
I agree with Mark there. Everybody should consider the COVID-19. It's not going away in the near future. I see a lot of people outside without masks on. The mask is there. You use the mask to protect other people from you. So be courteous and protect the people around you from anything that you might be spreading, and wear the mask and have a safe summer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Owens?
I'd like to thank all the residents that I was able to talk to on Tuesday, and getting to get to know some more people. And again, the caution that tomorrow we do go into the yellow phase. Please get out and enjoy, but with caution. And enjoy the summer. This coming weekend's supposed to be a nice one. Thank you.
All right, and Ms. Frescatore?
I would just like to thank all the residents for self-quarantining. Our numbers have done pretty well, and I think it's because most of the folks in Warminster followed the rules, washed their hands, wore their masks when they went out. And so we just continue to wash our hands, wear a mask when you go into any of the stores, congregate maybe in small groups with your families, and just don't go crazy. And that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yes, and to that point again, in the fall, just because we're going into the yellow phase doesn't mean that we're back to normal. Support your local businesses; they could use it, and be wary, be mindful of everyone. This is not over. It could really get bad in the fall, and when it's compounded with the flu. So everything we can do to mitigate that would help, and have a great rest of June, and we'll see you again in July. So with that, I would motion to adjourn.
Motion.